Undertale is an RPG that everyone knows and loves, being a hit when it released back in 2015. However, that's not what I'm here to talk about. Instead, Fangame released on December 9th of 2023, Undertale Yellow, where instead of playing as Frisk, you play as one of the previous fallen humans, being Clover, the Yellow Soul, hence the name. Similar to Undertale, this game is really good as said in the title of the video, so if you've not played it, go play it now, because this will be filled with spoilers. I'll make sure I leave a link to the game in the description if you want to play it. Before I get into things, I should mention that I've only personally played the pacifist route, but I will mention important changes that happen in the neutral and especially genocide routes. Onto the story, it starts with an intro very similar to the base Undertale. But one important difference is that it shows that Clover didn't fall like Frisk did, but instead ventured into the underground trying to find the previous 5 humans. Clover falls into the ruins similar to Frisk, going into the next room meeting a Frogget instead of Flowey. Doyle immediately shows up to stop the fight and brings you through the ruins up to the switch room. The second switch that is marked does not work, then when trying the other switch, the floor collapses, causing Clover to fall down once again. After a walk through a hallway, you meet Flowey, who's oddly being nice to Clover, teaching them to avoid his friendliness pellets and also being your save point because Clover doesn't have the power unlike Frisk did. After fighting a few monsters, doing some puzzles, you find a mysterious figure talking to himself about meeting someone again. Once he spots you, he believes he is just seeing things and then runs away. A little right through, you can find a lemonade in a side room. It just reminds me of the Spider Big Step. Not that it's the same because it is a different part of the ruin, but still, it's similar. You can actually get it for free or leave a tip. The next room has a cord maze with spikes forcing you to go through it. At the end is a switch to make getting past it easier, and if you go left from the entrance, you can get some pebble ammo. Ammo in this game works like weapons in base Undertale. Clover starts with a toy gun that later gets upgraded, so the ammo works as a way of making your weapon stronger. There is another sight with the cloaked monster here who seems more upset than before. Soon after, you go through a hallway where you fight Decibel, but he won't show up if you've already killed the monsters here in a genocide run. He's basically there to teach you about blue and orange attacks, which, unlike the basic attacks, can be dodged through. Orange you move, blue you stay still. To spare him, either watch him 5 times, or annoy him by talking or shooing him 5 times. Near the end of the ruins is an actual maze where you find a feather for your hat. Similar to how ammo replaces different weapons, and Undertale Yellow you use accessories for your hat. There's also a blocked off road. At the end, you find the cloaked monster once again, who seems to be both scared and upset before running away once again. While you can follow him, you can also walk down to find a 1 in the wall. There are also numbers 2 through 5 in the ruins that if you interact with in order, unlocks the other route in the maze. You fight a micro frogget that just compliment twice to spare, and grab a golden pear. It's a good item, but I wouldn't use it to heal, for you can use it something later. Back to the story, you follow the cloaked monster, and he fights you having nowhere else to go. He takes off the hood showing he's a vampire, and we see his name is Dal. In battle, he has attacks, all being electricity-based, that light up the background when he is used, which is a nice detail. After surviving his attacks and not dealing 50% or more damage to him, you can eventually give him a handshake to spare him. During the fight, he does seem very reluctant to fight, by then realizing that you're not the person he thinks you are. At the end of the way is his house. If Dolph is still alive, he tells you about things to interact with. If he isn't, you can go in his room, which you normally can't. At the back is a door leading you out of the ruins. Dolph either takes off the boards for you, or Flowey does it, or if he's dead, or you abort a genocide run by sparing him. Leaving the ruins brings Clover into Snowdin, another area explored in base Undertale, but similar to the ruins, is a different part of Snowdin to explore. Shortly into your Snowdin exploration, you come across a puzzle with a bird monster having just finished repairing it, then flying away before he spots you. It's a simple lava rod puzzle, but if you go check the sign right there, See that there are a bunch of PSs left by the monster who you see is named Martlet. After walking through some areas, Mo the merchant shows up. Not really a super important character, but is fun and has a store in not only Snowdin, but another 2 areas after this. But they're more out of the way and completely optional. You also get your first letter and meet the UGPS for the first time. Currently, you just get letters, but further in the game, you can travel between the signs you pass by. If you're trying to get the golden items, there's an area behind the Honeydew Resort you pass by or can shop in. Right after the resort is a bridge puzzle that you see Martlet fly away from after fixing a sign. After the bridge, there's some areas, another lava rock puzzle, then you find Martlet in an information kiosk. Well, it's not technically one, but she does offer to help Clover. After a second, you realize that Clover is a human and goes ahead and gets in a battle with you, reading her Royal Guard manual, telling you to take your first turn. She gets confused when you don't attack, but after a couple of turns, attacks back as the manual says. Simply survive her feathers and tools, and she ends up getting confused later and wants you to insult her, so you're at least a bit aggressive. But after doing that a bit, she spares you, realizing that you're no threat, and decides to help you escape the underground. She brings you onto her boat, planning to take you to Hotland. In a genocide run, or if you kill her in a neutral run, she just flies off before you can actually deplete all her health, and you go on the boat alone. After a bit of riding the boat and taking Martlet's survey, if she joins you in the water, it starts to move faster, and you crash, falling to the next area of the game, the dunes. While this game has been good so far, I would say that this is where it gets much better and feels like a much more unique experience compared to base Undertale. The first reason is that the first 2 areas, while being separate parts of the ruins in Snowdin, are still similar to the areas explored in base Undertale. Also, around halfway through this area is where the game becomes much more character-based, which also provides a unique experience because of the completely new characters. I mean, there's only 3 characters from base Undertale that show up here, being Toriel at the start, Flower who acts completely different than in the main game, and the other shows up near the end that I'll mention at that point. Shortly after entering the dunes, there is a snowstorm where you have to stay on the differently colored tiles between the giant pools of sand. At the end of the first area is a monster with some TNT set up with a giant axe. Not important yet, but good to keep a mental note of. After another area, then a split path of either another normal area, or going over some bridges, you can turn off the giant fan, creating the same storm. Soon you enter some mines where a piece of wood is holding a pillar shaft. Buy one for 30 gold, or answer the questions correctly from one of the miners to get their pickaxe and fix the elevator. After dodging some rocks and solving some minecart puzzles, you fight a mini-boss, El Balador, which is a rhythm game with 3 colors having to press Z, but you can turn that part off, making it feel just a bit easier. In a genocide run, you're in the same part of the box the notes are falling down from, so you just dodge those instead. After the fight, you grab a dimensional satchel, allowing you to use the box in the menu from anywhere, which I wish I had both times I played, but I was being kinda stupid, I guess. You exit the mines fully after this, where you can go back to the monster of TNT from earlier to get the golden cactus. But back on track, Martlet is found raiding food and follows Clover through the next town until the 2 of you get to the next main area. Making it to the next area, 4 monsters apart that originally seemed like deaths, but they're really not, and then their leader shows up, revealing that they are the Feisty 5. The leader is Northstar, the eel is Moray, the monster to the left is Ed, the squirrel is Mooch, and the final one all the way to the right is Ace. Northstar has Ed grab Clover, and the rest end up putting Martlet in jail. Clover is put in a stage next to Northstar, who seems to be quite interested in humans, and while he shows you off, a friend of his, Saroba, asks some questions, and afterwards asks you to play along with Northstar. You can explore the town called the Wild East to progress. Simply talk to Northstar, as he wants Clover to be his deputy. At first, the plan is to do a duel, but Ace points out that Clover is looking a bit off. So Northstar takes you to the shop to buy your revolver, which is the upgrade to your gun as mentioned earlier. He also gets you a new hat from his Ace that looks basically the same. I should also mention at this point that both hats give you +2 defense if you're on easy mode. Then you talk to Northstar to do the actual duel. where your gun is swapped out to be safe. When you win, Northstar pretends to have died from the hit, but it's just another test for Clover. Which I should mention, in a genocide run, the rest of the town is gone. Northstar only stays to duel with you, where you win the duel and kill him, because you grab the revolver right before you enter the Wild East. Then Saruba fights you, and that's it for the dunes on a genocide run, but back to pacifist. The next test Northstar has you do is the common train situation, where you have to have the train hit the chosen rails and people. Well, it kind of makes fun of it, saying you can just untie them. Of course, it's all fake and no one actually dies. After talking to Northstar 1 last time, he announces to the group that Clover will be the new deputy, angering them that Clover has become so high up so easily. Northstar then runs off to grab Clover's badge, leaving them alone with the other members of the Feisty Five who decide to fight you to see if you're really strong enough to be the deputy. You take turns attacking, starting with Ed, then Moore, then Ace, and finally Moot, then attacking again in that order, and finally Ed and Moore do a team attack, and Ace and Moot attack together as well, before then Star returns, stopping the fight. The four tell him why they're so annoyed and all storm off, with Saruba explaining that they just want the real him, the real Starlo, and that is his actual name. She leaves and Starlo also leaves in a different direction. Meeting up with him makes him realize that defeating a human would give him status, so he fights you, hoping that it'll make the others come back. To start the fight, he ties you up with his lasso, moving your soul back to the middle of the box. He fights using mostly his gun and TNT. At the end of the first phase, he shoots a single bullet at you, so you have to shoot his lasso. Then he'll shoot a bunch of times, freeing you if you get him to shoot his lasso again, then starts his second phase. At the end of the attack, his phase just has his attacks, but harder to dodge. After surviving them all, he only has one bullet left, letting you spare or kill him. Saruba comes up to fight, or will think he ran away if he is killed. After the fight, you pass the farm he grew up in, and then at the entrance of the Steamworks. This also happened in the genocide run. The Steamworks is quite different in each route. Saruba joins Clover in a pacifist run, but Flowey instead joins in a neutral or genocide run. Although in a genocide run, the basic puzzles are skipped after turning the factory back on and passing some steam, you meet Axis, the security system, who drops Clover and Saruba into a room. In a genocide run, Clover shoots them and they drop themselves instead of Clover. In the room, Saruba has the idea to make a robot friend for Axis to distract him. But this is skipped in the neutral run. It's fun to make whatever you want, kind of like this. After leaving, you meet a manta robot that helps you get around. There is an area where you the 3 golden items where you fight Macro Frogget, where you grab frogs to spare. At the end, Giga Frogget even shows up to help you, and after the fight, you get a golden bandana, which gives you the most defensive of any item. At the end of the lava is an area where Axis chases you, or the opposite in Genocide Run. Then a room where Axis still these orbs at you, except for, again, in Genocide Run. Then you're at a hall where Axis attacks, so either Saruba or Flowey saves Clover, or Axis just doesn't show up in Genocide Run. The next room is a lounge where either Flowey talks to you, or Saruba tells Clover about her daughter Kanako. After a bit, you end up in an abandoned garden. Near the end, a robot appears after you trample some flowers, except for in a genocide run, because Axis warns her not to come out. To spare her, you just have to use each button 3 times to release yourself from her trap, then bleed 5 times. Then there's a split path. Saruba unlocks the left and pacifist, but in genocide or neutral, the up door is open. The up path has Clover make a fake ID, then makes 2 elements together. The left has Clover and Saruba work together to organize boxes and finally dodge Axis in a dark room, while you figure out a password. At the top, Saruba reads through some files about her husband Shujin and his creation Axis, and Nazgul refusing her, who at the time wasn't very good. Finally is a hallway you go down in all routes during an emergency shutdown on both neutral and pacifist. Finally, you meet up with Axis for the last time, blocking off Saruba and pacifist and giving pacifist and neutral Clover a lid to make them a dust he can fight them, or using it himself in a genocide run. The fight has you block attacks with the trash lid, and knowing Axis to a point where he throws a more powerful attack, you reflect back onto him. Doing this 7 times has you either compliment him 3 times in a neutral path or plan B in pacifist, where Saruba reveals that the created robot causing Axis to fall in love with, who would? and he adds Clover and Ceroba to the list of authorized users so he doesn't attack them again in the future. And Genocide just survive until he mentions Harry's program to attack that human, being the Blue Soul human. This angers Clover, flipping their soul around like a yellow soul base in Undertale, shooting a giant beam at a now unprotected Axis, and raising their love from 12 to 19. After this, Clover either rides an elevator to Hotland or a pacifist. Starlo and Ed come to stop Ceroba, but she gets on the elevator, Ed taking you back as Starlo follows Ceroba. Back at the Wild East, Maitland meets up with Clover and the remaining Feisty members. You are then told to go to Ceroba's house, and Marlet follows. Finding a button under your table reveals a lab and a TV where you watch a tape from Chuchi. He explains his experiments with the blue human soul was not pure because the human attacked the monster. He wants Ceroba to finish his experiments with the pure human soul, which is what Yul Sorrel is in the Pacifist Run, which is where you'll see this line. After leaving, Mila thinks that Clover should go and stop Ceroba, and she convinces the remaining Feisty 5 members to let Clover go. She tells meet her on a rooftop in Hotland, which is where the elevator at the end of the Steamworks takes you. All 3 routes has Clover meeting with Martlet on a rooftop, starting the end of the game, which is different on each route. First, I want to start with the neutral ending, where Flowey kills Martlet, gets upset with you just being neutral, and you fight him as Meta Flowey. Kinda similar to Omega Flowey in the base Undertale, but everything takes place in his head because he doesn't have any humans with him to give him more power. After beating him, he simply resets the game for you to play another round. The Genesis Hero has Marlet inject herself with determination, and you fight Zenith Marlet. The first phase is you shoot bullets from your soul at her, then go into phase 2 and actually can attack her. Then at the end, she melts as you defeat her, then go in the castle to defeat Asgore and escape with the other human souls. In fact, this route is also called the Vengeance route, but Genocide is just more recognizable. It also the flawed pacifist. If you kill the final pacifist boss, you go to Asgore with Marlet and get just constantly attacked until you die. On to the true pacifist ending, which is what I got, is the canon ending. And probably the best one to get story-wise, if you like the characters. Clover and Martlet take the elevator to a new home and go to where Ceroba and Starlo are. After seeing how serious Ceroba is, and that she clearly can't be talked out of this, Starlo tries to hold her off while letting Martlet fly away with Clover. But Ceroba shoots the 2 down and begins a fight with Clover. In the first phase, she acts like a normal boss, attacking with stuff like cherry blossoms and energy spheres. Then at the end of the phase, she traps you in a small box, attacking, but Clover's soul doesn't break. She then does one last attack, but Clover breaks it by shooting a beam from her soul, similar to what happens with Axis in the Genocide Run, but this time it's just to stop an attack. Then Ceroba puts the Kitsune mask her daughter made on, starting phase 2. This phase and the rest of the phases all have her create a shield that needs to be shot down until she summons 4 bells that also need to be attacked, each shooting a circle that needs to be dashed through. After breaking all 4, shoot her masks to go to the next phase. You can raise your stats in the act menu to stay alive, and if you defeated, you just go back to the start of the phase, so even if she does a ton of attacks at once, you won't have too much of a problem, which is good because this fight is supposed to be more emotional than a standard fight. After phase 2, you see one of Ceroba's memories, this being when her husband Chujin was close to dying, and he told her about the secret lab explored earlier. You also see Kanako watching. Phase 3 is similar to phase 2 but harder, and the mask is a bit broken. After this phase, there is another memory, this one being Kanako wanting to be injected by the human soul that Ceroba purified, but doesn't end up working out. Then, after one last phase, you can either spare or kill Ceroba. She wants you to kill her so she can be with their family, but for the true pacifist, just spare her. Starlo and Marlet wake after the fight to cheer Ceroba up after everything and discuss what to do with Clover because they obviously don't want them dead. But while talking, Clover thinks about everything said and takes out their soul to be given to Asgore because only 2 more souls are needed, so they want to prevent any more humans from being killed. After a group hug, Clover gives Starlo their revolver and Martlet their hat. Then Clover gives Ceroba their souls and she leaves with the others, letting Clover rest. Even Flowey decides to just wait for the next human. The credits start with the 3 giving Asgore your soul, Then it plays a bunch of short cutscenes of all the monsters in the underground. And that is the end of Undertale Yellow. If you watch this video and still haven't played it, you really should. I really don't go super deep into a lot of stuff, especially the neutral and genocide ending, because of me not playing them. And there's still all the fights I skimmed over and much more story left to talk about. Overall, this is just a really great game that I would suggest to anyone, especially if you like interesting stories in your games. I think the fact I've recorded this during the week right after I beat the game for the first time, the prior week, really shows just how much I love it. Again, there will be a link in the description of this video so you can play it, because you really totally should.